Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, is in focus now, and we've been able to get in touch with him, with people on the ground at the Kabul airport. Jamil, first of all, what are you hearing? What are you learning?
Yeah, what we're hearing, Harris, is exactly what Jennifer was just reporting, which this is a complex, coordinated attack, bringing together multiple attacks that appear to have taken place, one at Abbey Gate, one at the Barron Hotel, potentially more suicide bombers in the area, unclear. All the gates have now been closed to the extent they were even limited open in a limited way, and all Americans are being asked to evacuate the area. Harris, so a very, very difficult situation on the ground. Obviously, what appears to be a growing number, at least 13 casualties, a growing number of casualties on the ground, a tragic situation right now unfolding.
Wait a minute. You just gave different numbers, and we've been really delicate with our reporting of the numbers. We understand that there's also an intricate way that the Pentagon lets families know of military personnel who have been hurt and possibly worse, killed. So, we don't always know the numbers in real time, but you seem to have a different number. Where is that coming from, and what does that entail?
So the number that I've heard, Harris, was 13, not 13 Americans, to be clear, but what we've heard is 13, at least 13 Afghans, and that was actually being confirmed by some Taliban sources. Now, again, take it for what it's worth, right? The Taliban are obviously a brutal group, and we shouldn't take what they're saying. But they're saying 13 casualties on the ground currently. We've seen reports that that bodies are being taken away from the scene. Again, to be clear, not Americans, but total at this time. And again, maybe that number is going to grow if, in fact, there were two attacks. Harris, as you know, the fog of war, as these things take place in these complex situations, these numbers may change. The number of attacks may change also in real time.
We're learning more about where people may have been, like the Barron Hotel, which was that second explosion site that we know of now. And again, this is a rolling situation. And as we're learning, Congress is trying to brief itself confidentially and in local secure locations as it's out right now, the House. But as we wait to hear more detail coming from the ground and from the Hill, where would people necessarily be congregating? Well, they've been told to get to the airport. And then yesterday, no, it's too dangerous to get to the airport. If you're caught in the middle and you know the Barron Hotel is a place where people gather to kind of wait outside that gate, you might go there. Jamil, do you know if there are other locations where there might be people who, and look, we can just talk about them like people. You're absolutely right. Doesn't matter. It's 13 Afghans, 3 Marines, all of that together. These are human beings who have helped us. We're in this together. And the enemy must know where they are because they are hitting them.
Well, that's exactly right, Harris. I mean, the tragedy of this situation is that we're talking about American citizens, American green card holders, Afghan nationals, as you say, who have helped us, fought alongside our soldiers. They lost over 60,000 soldiers in this 20-year conflict. We've lost 2,500 soldiers in this conflict. So, and then, of course, as you pointed out, Harris, we have American military members right there on the ground right now, heroes who are going and trying to save these lives of Americans and our Afghan allies, all in harm's way. And they're congregating, Harris, at these gates where they're being let into the airport. And these are thousands of people at various gates around the airport. I don't want to describe specifically which gates people are at because obviously that will attract attention from the Taliban and the like. But I'll say this, Harris. There are Taliban checkpoints all around the airport that people have to proceed through just to get to these gates that they're being advised to go to. Now, you're right. At times they're being told, draw back from those gates, step back, right? But they're also being told, if you want to get into the airport and get out of this country before the withdrawal happens, you got to go to the gates. And so there's this tension in what we're telling our own citizens, our own green card holders, and our allies.
At the National Security Institute, Jamil, what kind of information would you be able to gather and then tell us about the communications there at these checkpoints? I mean, we're hearing multiple reports that passports are being ripped up from Afghan nationals, that really what they're seeking are those blue passports, and those are ours. And, that the problem with having an open border, and I do want to broaden this out now, those blue passports are gold. They can be, utilized. They can be manipulated. We've done everything we can to encrypt what we can. But you're probably, I would think, at the Institute pretty familiar with what they're looking for at those checkpoints.
Yeah, so what's happening right now at those checkpoints is that in order to get through, you've got to show some form of ID. And what they're really doing is focusing on what appear to them to be Afghan nationals, right, who may have U.S. green cards, U.S. passports, or the like. In theory, right, under the agreement that we have with them, they're supposed to let those people through and proceed to the airport, right, because that's the agreement that we've made with them. And in theory, that's what's supposed to be happening. In reality, on the ground, and again, it's less the National Security Institute where I work, but the organizations that we're coordinating with, like Allied Airlift 2021, which is a group of West Point graduates who put together this amazing organization, other members of the Afghan evac group, including these human rights organizations, who are working here in the United States to coordinate getting people through these checkpoints to the airport, into the airport, on flights out of the country, really, and doing the job the government is also trying to work on, helping make this happen. They're the ones who are learning a lot of this information, helping make this happen. And what we're seeing, Harris, to be candid with you, is Americans, green card holders and citizens being harassed at these checkpoints, being harassed at the gates, and Afghan allies who don't have those blue passports and don't have green cards, even more so, being beaten, tear gassed. I mean, it is a very, very difficult and tragic situation right on the ground. And it's still the only way to get them out. They have to go to the airport and get on these airplanes. It's a very, 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 very tough situation, Harris.
I don't know if you heard Congressman Banks, who served in Afghanistan for a period of time and has gone back as a lawmaker. Part of the issue would be opening another airfield. And I asked him directly, do we put troops on the ground to go back and try and reopen Bagram? Are people squatting at our base, basically, or are they squatting at these other airfields? And he said, it's treacherous just to even try to get access on the ground to these other airports. So it would be more than just reopening. You'd have to put enough forces there, NATO, U.S. allied forces, and ours, I would imagine, to secure an even longer stretch to get to that airport. It seems like as big a job, if not bigger, than securing Kabul. But as you pointed out, you got to do something, and you got to do it fast. Jamil Jaffer, thank you very much for being with me from the National Security Institute. We'll bring you back as this news comes together. Appreciate your expertise this hour.
Thanks, Harris.